For those who were fans of late-night television in the early 2000s, you undoubtedly stumbled across a late-night infomercial for the psychic known as Miss Cleo. Cleo and the organization known as Psychic Readers Network was the undisputed rulers of 1-800 psychic readings for a brief period of time around the new millennium, and raked in over $1 billion from their psychic scam in just about 2 years before their empire eventually crashed and they lost over $500 million in earnings after the FTC sued them for deceptive business practices.
If you've never had a reading from a real psychic, try us right now for free. Your father had a stroke at a young age, did he not?
Right.
Did you get strep throat a great deal in your late teen years?
Yes, I did.
Okay. His eyes are almost spooky. They're so pretty.
That would be my ex-boyfriend.
The 5 of swords is next to him, and that means that he is away.
Yep.
Did you think Cleo wasn't going to see that?
Oh, I knew you were.
Oh, you go, girl. Let us amaze you. Call now and try it for free.
Now, before we talk about the organization that ran the empire, let's dig into the past of Miss Cleo. The real name of this lady was Yuri Del Harris, who had created the character of Miss Cleo for a play she wrote in 1996 called For Women Only. Despite her using a Jamaican accent in her Cleo videos, it later came to light in a lawsuit that she was born in California and had no records to show she had ever lived in or had any family connection to Jamaica in any way. On top of the deceptive accent, Harris had a history of other sketchy dealings, such as claiming she had attended the University of Southern California as a theater major, despite the school having no record of any of her aliases ever attending. On top of that, an organization known as the Langston Center awarded her a grant to produce a play since she had a theater background, but it was then reported she decided to skip town with the money and didn't pay the actors, telling them she had bone cancer and wasn't sure when she would be able to pay them for their work. Harris' life of small-time acting jobs dramatically changed overnight in the late 90s when she became the face of the organization known as the Psychic Readers Network. The Miss Cleo character was plastered all over late-night television and made the company over $1 billion in revenue in a short 2-year period of time, and made Miss Cleo an instant celebrity. Despite the overnight success of Miss Cleo, she reportedly saw very little of the $1 billion that was raked in, as she was only the spokesperson for Psychic Readers Network and had no actual control of the company. PRN was created in 1993 by 2 men named Stephen Feeder and Peter Stoltz. They created the company after seeing the massive success of other 1-800 psychic infomercials like the similar company Psychic Friends Network, which made millions in the early 90s, convincing people to pay up to $5 a minute to talk to one of their psychics. Stephen and Peter tried to take over the space with celebrity endorsements at first. One of the early attempts in the mid-90s was an infomercial featuring Lando Calrissian, hawking the psychic network, who apparently was desperate for cash after his gas mining business failed on Cloud City.
Why do you talk to PRN psychics?
The free sample readings.
My career.
Romance.
The free sample reading.
Money.
My future. My family. My future.
My career. Would you recommend PRN?
Yes, absolutely.
You bet.
Oh, yes. PRN is the best.
With a free sample reading? Yes. What does Psychic Readers Network have that others don't?
Integrity.
They have the original free sample reading.
Amazing accuracy. Psychics who are friendly, who care.
Psychics who see good things in your future and help you get them.
What's the best part of the PRN deal? The free sample reading, of course.
The free sample reading, no question.
I find their psychics are the best. You get to try it out with a free sample reading.
Psychic Readers Network. So many good reasons to call, but perhaps the easiest is the free sample reading. Try it out. Call now.
Despite many mid-tier celebrity endorsements, the Psychic Readers Network saw only moderate success until their first ad featuring Miss Cleo in the year 2000. Following this, the company became an overnight success and made the 2 men running the company massively rich. However, with sudden fame comes scrutiny, and the company was eventually sued by individuals in 10 different states for deceptive business practices, and in 2002 the Federal Trade Commission charged Psychic Readers Network with deceptive advertising, billing, and collection practices. Many of the issues arose from the claim that callers would get 5 free minutes to talk to Miss Cleo, but when they called in, the 5 minutes of free time was spent giving their billing information to the company and then waiting on hold to talk to Miss Cleo. In most cases, Cleo wouldn't even talk to them directly, and another psychic would answer their call and tell them Cleo was on vacation. In many cases, callers didn't even know their 5 free minutes were up, and they would be shocked the following month when a several $100 bill would arrive in the mail. PRN and the founders eventually settled with the FTC by agreeing to erase $500 million in debt that was owed to them by callers and paying a $5 million fine to the FTC. Miss Cleo was sued by the state of Florida for her involvement in the company, but the charges were later dropped after it was discovered she knew very little about the running of the actual company. The PRN company eventually stopped advertising on TV and dropped Miss Cleo, which altered her life once again. Cleo, aka Harris, apparently was very distraught about her involvement in PRN after they had been outed as a scam, and she turned into a bit of a recluse. She made a reported $400,000 from her time as Miss Cleo, but it's unclear how much she was able to keep after her court battle and legal fees. Harris tried to revive her character a few times over the years to make money. She voiced the character of Auntie Paulette in the 2002 video game GTA Vice City, she became the spokesperson for a makeup company, and the Miss Cleo character did advertisements for the return of the breakfast cereal French Toast Crunch.
Go on, babies. Miss Cleo is back. Now, do you have silverware, sweet pea?
Oh my gosh, I do.
I sent you up something other than a knife and a fork.
I have a spoon. How did you know?
Now I have a vision that you are going to take that spoon and scoop up a bite of French Toast Crunch. All cinnamony and maple syrupy.
I can't believe you see all that.
French Toast Crunch is back and I predict you'll love it. Eat it now.
The company PRN didn't like Harris using the Cleo character for other companies, claiming they owned the rights to the Miss Cleo character, and filed lawsuits every time she did so. They successfully got General Mills to pull a cereal ad, and eventually dropped the case against Rockstar Games to pay for the similar character in GTA. Miss Cleo eventually developed cancer and sadly passed away in 2016 at the age of 53. However, her likeness as Miss Cleo lives on, as she can be found in countless memes on YouTube, and HBO released a docuseries on her late last year. Despite the sad ending for Harris, Stephen and Peter, the founders of the company, are still around and never faced any jail time. Both appear to have made out like bandits. Stephen, who apparently still owns Psychic Readers Network, which now does online work only, recently sold his waterfront Fort Lauderdale mansion for a reported $14 million in 2021, and has a New York City apartment listed for $40 million as well. The other owner, Peter, apparently left the company in 2003 after the lawsuit and started a website development company based out of Florida that he has been running since then. The late 90s and early 2000s were the golden age of 1-800 phone scams that made many people like Stephen and Peter massively rich. In 2012, Mark Edward, who was a top psychic for the rival company Psychic Friends Network, released a book titled Psychic Blues that broke down the whole business of how the psychics that answered the phones didn't have any real clairvoyant powers and were trained to keep people talking as long as possible. He described his time with the company as being like a psychic sweatshop. Despite all the bad mojo that has since come out about these psychic scams, Miss Cleo, aka Harris, continued to claim to be psychic after her time was over at PRN. Up until her death, she claimed that her goal had always been to help people. Despite the court case revealing she was born in California to American citizens, she continued to use her Jamaican persona that made her famous. Her friends in the HBO docuseries contested that she did all of her work as Miss Cleo to help people and was appalled to learn of all the terrible business practices of PRN once they were revealed to her, but it's hard to believe she didn't really know what was going on, especially considering the history of dishonesty around her origin and work history. But with that being said, I would love to know what your opinion on this whole story is. Was Miss Cleo in on the con, or was she taken for a ride by Psychic Readers Network and had no idea what was really going on behind the scenes?